Okay. Just before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded territories of the Cowichan Coast Salish peoples. In this room are different views, different ways of expression, different emotional intensities, and different roads that lead to conclusions. May we combine clarity of mind and kindness of heart, and may we be impartial without bending to strong personalities. May we sacrifice self-interest in the good of the whole. May we do our work with love and clarity of vision for the benefit of those we represent. And with that, I call the March 6th regular council meeting to order. Any late items, Ms. McWilliams?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Duncan. I have just published the public hearing minutes from earlier this evening, and this is for the benefit of the 2 council members who weren't able to attend the public hearing. This would be considered the report that they need to receive to be able to consider the bylaw later on in this agenda. So if you accept, the late item will be considered as item 4.2, and that's the March 6th public hearing. And you'll see there's a recommendation for them to be received for information.
So I'll call for approval of the agenda with the amendment of the late items. Second, all in favor? Thank you. Adoption of minutes, February 21st, 2023. The minutes of the February 21st, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted as circulated. Any errors or omissions? No. All in favor? Thank you. And the March 6th, 2023 public hearing minutes. Some motion to adopt. All in favor? Thank you. And that moves us to item 5.1, delegations, the overview of the 4VI, formerly the Tourism Vancouver Island. Podium is yours. And you would be Miss B. Cant?
I am.
Yeah. What would the B stand for?
Brian.
Brian,
Yeah.
Thank you. And
this is my colleague Kenzie Knight.
Kennedy?
Kenzie.
Kenzie. Okay,
which is
thank you very much.
The K stands for, so thank you. I mentioned that I break technology, so I apologize if it's gonna break.
We just got some new equipment and we might have some breaking in too. But
Perfect.
We've got it up and running, so we're ready to go.
Wonderful. Good. Yeah, as the minutes, the agenda say, my name's Brian Cant. I'm the Vice President of Business Impact and Engagement with 4VI, formerly Tourism Vancouver Island. And I'll just provide a brief overview of where our organization is going with responsibility for the Vancouver Island region. And then my colleague Kenzie Knight is the coordinator for the Cowichan region for the Tourism Cowichan Society. So she'll dive a little bit more into the work that Tourism Cowichan is doing in this region specifically. But I first want to begin, we represent an entire region of British Columbia, and within that are 50 different nations. And I just want to recognize that with that responsibility, we operate within the territories of the Nitchalneth, Kwakwaka'wakw, and Coast Salish peoples, and I'm honored to be here tonight in the Cowichan Tribes region. I'm actually based in Victoria in the Lekwungen territory. Our organization is also committed to truth and reconciliation through the calls to action and the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Action Plan with the province of BC. So what is 4VI? Not just misprint in changing TVI to 4VI. Last year, in April, we actually changed our organization to the model of a social enterprise with the purpose of ensuring that travel remains a force for good for the Vancouver Island region forever. And that came as a result of a number of factors, but primarily the COVID-19 pandemic and the reality that tourism had to come back in a different way and come back better and not just be lip service to that. When we were moving through the pandemic and leading into late 2019, our CEO at the time and our board had this realization that if we didn't change what we were doing for tourism to seek balance, we would turn into blockbuster video as an organization. The province, the world, and Vancouver Island specifically are dealing with areas of imbalance in tourism, and our focus has shifted to try and address that change. So we are a restart up. We will make sure that we are looking at business being, travel being a force for good for business, as a social enterprise, but also for communities, culture, and the environment. We have 4 pillars of social responsibility, as I mentioned, and those 4 pillars are what we intend to base our metrics, measurement, and work on, not just for the benefit of the bottom line, which is obviously critically important to the success of this region, but we also have to consider the residents that live here, the various cultures that are fostered and founded here, and the environment. As we go through that, we are continuing to invest in areas within this region. A few examples within the supportive businesses. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we created the Vancouver Island Tourism Resiliency Program, which then eventually expanded in year 2 to the full province. It was a $500,000 investment where we were there to support businesses in helping to ensure that they could keep their doors open, become a little bit more savvy in the tech space, be a little bit better at drawing industry in, working together, and ensuring that when the pandemic receded, went away. I admit that it certainly hasn't, but when things got better, they would be open. And during that time, the 2-year period, we actually helped more than 500 businesses in the Vancouver Island region stay open and remain relevant as we moved out of the pandemic to the year we're in now. Another example of the work that we've done within the Vancouver Island region is in Cumberland. Cumberland, as you probably all know, is an avid mountain biking destination, much like this region. And we spent $62,000 through Targeted Regional Tourism Development Fund to enhance a mountain biking trail in Cumberland. Rather than blaze a new trail and further enter the ecosystem, we actually took an existing popular trail and enhanced it to make sure that it wouldn't create any environmental degradation in the region. And it benefited obviously the people that live there, but the people that also like to visit there and explore that region for mountain biking. Now, I would probably, as I've done the one time in my life, downhill mountain biking, end up right over the handlebars, but I hear it's lots of fun and people really enjoy it. It's probably not for me specifically. Recently, and we're really proud of this work, we worked with a series of Indigenous people throughout the Vancouver Island region to create a limited series podcast called Indigenous Voices of Vancouver Island. This 5-episode podcast profiles various businesses owned and operated by Indigenous people throughout the region with various themes, and it's narrated by Czech broadcaster. It's my 7 minutes in already. Chattis Leo is the voice behind the podcast, and it just launched about a month and a bit ago. And then I'm sure you all know how much it rains in Bamfield, probably a little bit more than here, and certainly more than in Victoria. We worked with Bamfield to put in a pavilion, an all-weather pavilion that could be available year-round for community members to use, but also for school groups when they're there, if they happen to be out at the Marine Research Center, and it starts to rain in the odd time that it does there, they'd have a dry space to go. And that was actually designed with the UBC School of Architecture as a project for them, and another investment that we made. So these are, oh, did I break it already? Look, I did. Yeah. Well, I warned you all at the beginning. So with this shift to a social enterprise comes a new strategy for us, a 3-year business strategy, but what we're calling an impact strategy from 2023 through to 2025, focused on these areas of service delivery excellence, industry transformation, and organizational transformation. And you may be wondering what a social enterprise is. If you're not aware of it, it's a very well-established type of business model in other parts of the world, not necessarily as well known here. What we plan to do is, from the money that we generate as a nonprofit, we will take it and reinvest it into this region through an impact fund. So those examples that I gave you are the first stages of the use of that surplus revenue, and the outcomes will be the impact fund. And you can see that the focus here is really looking at reducing the impact of tourism. I'm not here to stand up and tell you that tourism is a bad thing. In fact, I believe the opposite. I just believe that it can be done better, and it can be done with consideration of residents. Most tourism initiatives and efforts aren't necessarily done through what works best for the people that live there. And we're firm believers in ensuring that residents are centered in this discussion. And that's why I'm here tonight and happy to present. So as we shift our marketing, we're no longer marketing, but we're shifting our marketing for the region. So we'll continue to share the great stories and the great pieces that happen, and the work that we do with contracts like Tourism Cowichan Society is a big part of that. But we also need to ensure that we're sharing that this space, this region, Vancouver Island, is a place where people have chosen to live because they like what it represents, and we want to make sure that that lasts for generations to come. So we are certainly seeking balance. This, for me, is not just a soundbite. A great place to live can be a great place to visit. I think we all know that. But sometimes a great place to visit is not a great place to live, and that's where things are out of balance. For example, you obviously are well aware of the city of Venice, population 50,000, annual visitation 35 million. The city of Barcelona, population just under 1 million, annual visitation over 2.5 million people to one small city in their mind. If you look at Tofino, the ratio of visitors to residents is about 250 to 1. And that causes concern for people that live there, but it also causes stress on systems. It causes stress on the cultures of the region. It causes stress on the social and environmental aspects of the region as well. And so with this, we do plan to kind of put the money where the mouth is here and measure what we're doing. We are looking at KPIs that look at communities, culture, the environment, and businesses, all four equal together. And we're very excited that we'll be the first region in North America to complete a full-scale carbon audit of the impact of tourism. So the entire Vancouver Island region has been measured for the amount of carbon dioxide, greenhouse gas emissions that it's producing from tourism specifically, and we'll be releasing that in the next few months. It provides us a baseline, looking at the number of visitors to the amount of greenhouse gas emissions produced. Doesn't really tell you much because you're not sure if that's supposed to be higher or lower, or is it a good thing or a bad thing. But now that we have this baseline, we'll be able to take action and hopefully reduce that as we go. And so, just to conclude, before I pass it over to Kenzie for the fun part, I promise she's a fantastic presenter and will save me now, but we certainly are focused on this. We have to change the status quo. We have to change our focus. We have to not only measure the bottom line from the economic perspective, but also measure the impact in other areas as well. And that's how we, as an organization, as 4VI, Tourism Vancouver Island formerly, will be measuring our impact as we go forward. So Kenzie's going to provide a brief overview specifically to the Tourism Cowichan Society, so for the Cowichan region, the work that's being done in marketing, with also this lens applied to it now. So you won't break this, but it's just this button. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. My name's Kenzie Knight. As Brian said, I'm the coordinator for Tourism Cowichan. Recently stepped into the role in December and happy to be here supporting tourism in the region. I'm going to give just a brief update on some of the work that we've been doing this quarter, just to give you a snapshot. Before heading into that, I want to highlight our key objectives with our destination marketing plan for Cowichan region. The first is to increase visitation and expenditures in the region. The second is to manage growth and benefits through seasonal and geographical dispersion. And we do this through investing in market research. And then the third is to increase the competitiveness of Cowichan as a destination by both improving the tourism and visitor experience and increasing collaboration amongst stakeholders.
Maybe I was wrong.
So the first bucket I'll just jump into is marketing, just to give you, like I said, an overview of what we've been working on. We are at the final stages of a rebrand process for Tourism Cowichan. We're really excited at the direction this is heading and just the awareness that this is going to bring to Cowichan as a destination and creating a strong sense of place. With the rebrand, we are also going to be collecting new image and video assets. We really want to create some just beautiful images that capture the emotion and essence of Cowichan and just the warmth and the hospitality of the people who live here, which is really a key factor in drawing visitors to the region. With that, we're also in the process of developing a new website, which will help to drive conversions and bookings through our stakeholder listings. We've also just launched our spring campaign, which is called Boldly Go, with various media buys and spring getaway contests to Cowichan. And then we continue to promote ongoing brand awareness through a number of different facets, including print and broadcast, Google search and display ads, paid social ads, organic social media content, and blog content. This quarter, we've also provided support for Dine and Sip Cowichan, which is the culinary festival that's taking place right now. And then lastly, we continue our consortium marketing with various partnerships, including BC Ale Trail, BC Bird Trail, Ride Island, which is through Mountain Biking BC, and Ahoy BC. And these partnerships really help to drive specific markets and motivators to Cowichan. Next, I'll just jump into stakeholder engagement. We will be re-engaging the Tourism Tuesdays, which are going to be taking place at the Duncan Cowichan Regional Visitor Center. This is an opportunity where I will be stationed at the Visitor Center to provide opportunity for tourism operators and businesses to drop in to get a better understanding of what Tourism Cowichan is up to and the various supports that we provide to operators. So I'll be there every Tuesday during the month of March. I also continue to facilitate one-on-one engagement to just spread the word of what Tourism Cowichan is up to and better understand the needs and the challenges of businesses in the region. We also promote engagement through our monthly newsletters. And this week, we actually have a special event coming up, which is Explore VI. This is a regional travel trade event that 4VI is hosting in the Cowichan region. So we're really excited that it's going to be within our region this year. And this will be attracting various receptive tour operators and stakeholders to the region. It's a great opportunity to promote our region, and I will be there attending and representing Tourism Cowichan. And we're also, with the Explore VI event, we'll also be hosting a number of different fam tours to just showcase Cowichan and the various attractions and experiences that we have here. And then lastly, we are planning to host our Tourism Cowichan AGM, which will be upcoming on April 5th. We're really looking forward to this as an opportunity to reconnect with stakeholders and provide an opportunity for in-person networking. And I'll just briefly touch on research. Tourism Cowichan is partnering with Vancouver Island University, the World Leisure Center of Excellence, to conduct 2 research studies, one on resident sentiment and the other on visitor sentiment around tourism. This will really help us to better understand the various feelings towards tourism and how tourism is impacting the quality of life of residents. With the return of international travel and the continuation of Canadian visitors, we've seen a lot of communities across Vancouver Island reach their hosting capacity. So we really want to make sure that we're developing tourism in a way that's sustainable and ensuring that communities don't become unlivable for the residents that are here. And then we have a number of industry and destination development opportunities coming up. Recognizing the challenges with the labor market, we want to provide resources to stakeholders. So we have an employee retention workshop that we'll be hosting with Go2HR. We have some complimentary Superhost customer service training that will be available for tourism employers and frontline staff. And then with that, we will also be hosting a destination ambassador training course. This will help to educate community members and frontline service industry on just providing some tourism knowledge so that they can be strong ambassadors for the region. And then lastly, we work with 4VI to promote the Biosphere Commitment Program. This is a program that encourages tourism operators on their sustainability journey, looking at how they can align with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to implement that into their operations. And on the destination development side, we are planning to administer an experience development fund. This will be a $100,000 fund that is available for community members and organizations to apply for. And it will be specifically to fund events and festivals, either the enhancement of existing events or the development of new events that will help to highlight Cowichan as a preferred multi-night destination, increase the length of stay for visitors that are coming here, and also to increase visitor spending and to increase just those economic and social benefits that flow from tourism to the community. So I'll just wrap up there. Thank you again for having us, and hope this provides just more of an overview of what we've been up to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from council? Well, I have a question. The other day, I saw a program where it looks like it's an enhancement for Google Maps, where when you're looking at, for example, the brew pub up here, you can actually go inside the pub. So I'm just, that, you know, I thought it was quite intriguing because you can basically actually check and see if they're carrying your brand of liquor. You know, so I was curious if that's going to be something that you would be involved with.
Yeah, we actually just went out in our previous newsletter. We are offering complimentary Google 360 virtual tours for stakeholders. We do have the camera equipment to be able to offer this. So that is available complimentary. We can come do a site visit, capture the virtual tour, and then help businesses to upload that to their Google listings.
And just one more. I'm actually the Tourism Advisory Commission Chair. So I know that one of our local citizens, Mr. Hatton, has spoke repeatedly about the the mountain bikers in the area that we have here. So again, is there something specifically you might, we want them to come off the mountain and come down to Duncan.
Yeah, so this year, through the municipal regional district tax that's collected through the CVRD, one of the strategies that we've put in place is to take the mountain biking strategy that was created in principle of what we could do for the Cowichan region and begin to implement it. So part of that is looking at the development of infrastructure with signage and everything else, but it's also a large marketing component to ensure that people, once they're finished mountain biking, can come to the brew pub. Probably not the other way around, but I mean, it's up to them. But that will be something that we'll put in place over the next few years as well.
Go ahead, Councillor Bruce.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Brian, early in the presentation, you mentioned that you helped businesses. There was a big sum of money up there, and could you give me an example of that?
Yeah, so what the Tourism Resiliency Program did within the Vancouver Island region before it expanded provincially was to work with businesses at the very beginning of the pandemic. Our organization shifted, I won't say pivoted, but shifted to begin to offer this service basically when tourism shut down and you couldn't go anywhere or anyone wanted to go anywhere. And what was needed then were opportunities for people to communicate. So a really good example was we worked with a communications professional. We hired her on a retainer, and she owns a communications agency, public relations, and she worked with businesses directly to help them create key messaging strategy, social media strategy, update their website. And so they could come to us and say, I need help in this specific area, and then we connected them with someone we had paid to offer the service and their time. What she did was work with about 25 businesses right at the beginning that said, I don't even know how to put COVID messaging on my website. I don't know what I'm supposed to say right now. And so obviously that program evolved over time and will conclude at the end of this month as the fiscal ends. But that's one of the examples of the 500 or so businesses that we helped. Others needed help in things from human resources, actual creating marketing collateral, occupational health and safety. It really varied, but what we wanted to focus on at the beginning of the program was to get people ready for the eventual hope, that things would shift back. I think we all remember, we're gonna go work at home for 2 weeks, which was a little bit longer than that, but that's one example of that program. And it's been in place since 2020, and it'll end at the end of this fiscal.
Yeah, thank you. With that money you had, did you get into a grant situation with any of the businesses? So you're actually giving them cash?
No. What we did was support businesses through the offering of services rather than grants, just because there were a number of other funding sources for grants for businesses at that time. But what we offered was the specialized services through the program. But the program was partially funded through a grant to us to help make that happen. Yeah.
Okay, don't see any other questions, so thank you very much. We look forward to having a great summer and seeing you again.
Yeah, well, thank you very
you.
much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Okay, that moves us on to 6.1, Report of the Chief Administration Officer, Mr. DeVertai.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Duncan. So the construction for Beach Avenue renewal did begin this week, or will begin this week, starting with site preparation and some creation of laydown areas. The project will be a full renewal of that roadway, and construction is scheduled to be completed by June of this year, subject to any delays encountered. There's a request or report on council's agenda tonight regarding an EV charging stations grant. We will work with the supplier to determine if it's feasible to install 2 new EV charging stations by this grant deadline of March 31st. The funding has been awarded to the City of Duncan from the BC Active Transportation Infrastructure Fund for the Coronation Avenue bike lanes. The designs, as council previously have seen, are being reviewed by staff and will be presented for consideration at an upcoming committee meeting. I believe we're tentatively looking at March 20th. The Kiwanis Club, as council supported with a letter of support at our last meeting, the Macadam Park Playground, the Kiwanis Club has submitted their application to the Co-op Community Spaces Fund for that playground. We do expect a decision by June of this year. And in the meantime, detailed design continues to finalize the playground design and components, then the exact siting and drainage and overall budget impacts. An excavation permit has been issued for 107 Evan Street, which will excavate most of the material from the site for the parkade and the foundation. Trees were removed from the site the week of February 20th. As council is aware, council issued a development permit for a 91-unit multi-unit residential development at its February 21st meeting for 365 Ypres. And the next step will be a building permit application, which I believe we're still awaiting. The official community plan update, council directed staff to undertake additional engagement, which is planned for this spring based on the OCP Advisory Committee's recommendations. The tender documents for the City Hall roof repair have been issued and is closing on March 17th. The heritage alteration permit will be brought forward to council consideration once a suitable contractor has been selected. And I think that's all I wanted to cover today.
Thank you, Mr. DeVertai. Any questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Bruce.
Thank you. With the Coronation Avenue bike lanes, that total drawing will be coming back to council? Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, so we're going to have a committee of the whole meeting on the 20th to go over the design, the updated designs with council as there was concerned with tree retention and parking allocation and whatnot. So you'll get full opportunity to give some feedback on that design.
One more. Also, with the OCP, I don't know is this a time to ask if we can revisit or have a discussion on the tree bylaw for other property?
Regarding the public hearing
Yes.
items, that would be, so later in the agenda, that's items on the agenda, so you can ask
Okay.
at that time, I would say.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I'll entertain a motion to accept the CAO report. All those in favor? Thank you. That moves us to item 7.1, Council Conference and Training Policy. That council approve renaming the conference AVICC, FCM, and UBCM policy to the Council Conference and Training Policy, and that council approve the Council Conference and Training Policy as attached to the March 6th, 2023 report from the Corporate Services Coordinator. Is there a mover or a seconder? Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. 8.1, early budget approval for EV charging stations. That council give early 2023 budget approval for $20,000 to install new EV charging stations funded from gas tax revenue. And well, floor is yours.
Good evening, Acting Mayor and Council. So regarding EV charging stations, we've been approached by the supplier that they have some leftover grant funds that they can access from this past year that expire at the end of March, the end of this month. And so we've been planning new EV charging stations for quite a while, but have been waiting and hoping for a grant opportunity to take advantage of. And this one has come along with relatively short notice, but a month to figure out if we can install new stations. And so we want to start with 2 new stations on Duncan Street. And the reason for that is when the existing stations were put in, it was already ducted and set up electrically for additional stations. So given a short timeline, that should be feasible to complete. If possible, we will also install a new station in the Canada Ave free parking lot. That one's a bit more complicated, so we don't know if we'll be able to get it done by March 31st. As we have to work with the supplier and electrical contractors, and that one requires a new electrical service from BC Hydro. So the timing on that one, we don't know if we'll be able to get that done by this March 31st deadline, but we'll give it a go. So the request is for approval for additional funds that are already in the 2023 draft capital plan. So the funds are in the draft plan. We're asking for early budget approval so that we have the flexibility to potentially install all 3 stations if we're able to line up the timing. Of course, we will only spend what is required, and we'll be sure that we have all the pieces lined up as we move through those 3 stations, and hopefully we can, working with the supplier, take advantage of this grant opportunity to support the installation.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. So that would be what, 2 on Duncan Street, and so a total of 3?
Correct, 2 dual port stations. So 4 new parking spaces on Duncan and potentially 2 more spaces in Canada Ave.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Go ahead, Councillor Bruce.
Thank you. So, Mr. Murphy, this is equipment that is available, and then we supply the $20,000 to install it. Is that correct?
Correct. So the total budget is what was, through Acting Mayor to Councillor Bruce, the total budget is what was already approved in 2022, and then this is a top-up for 2023. And so the costs include the purchase of the charging station itself, installation, and electrical. And so each station is a little bit different in terms of what makes up the costs. And then the grant is 50% back of the station itself. The installation costs are additional to that.
So this $20,000 is the total amount the city will be responsible for?
Through the chair to Councillor Bruce, so in 2022, we have 54,280 that was already approved that we've carried over, and the 20,000 is additional to that. So the total budget is 74,280. That will also include, we have a station that currently needs repair or replacement, so that'll come out of that same budget. And the total cost will be what they are, and if there's leftovers, we will return it to surplus.
Seeing no further questions, move the recommendation. Seconder? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. And that takes us to 8.2, UBCM Poverty Reduction Action Grant, Stream 2, Cowichan Housing. That council support the activities described in the March 6, 2023 draft application provided by Cowichan Housing Association and direct staff to finalize the application details and submit the grant application to the Stream 2 UBCM Poverty Reduction Planning and Action Program. And that council support the overall management of the UBCM Poverty Reduction Planning and Action Stream 2 funding if the application is successful. And that should the application be successful, the Cowichan Housing Association be required to enter into an agreement with the city with respect to the use of the funds. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Thank you. And this one will be for Mr. DeVertai.
Thanks. I'll just speak very briefly to it. I believe Melina is here and can answer some questions as well. But the council approved in 2022, the city received an application or put in an application for the poverty grant, and the Cowichan Housing Association has been doing that work and consulting, and we'll be doing a session on March 15th. So they're still working on some of the finalizing of the details. There's a draft application in your package there showing what the proposed work will be doing for the implementation. But it might be best if Cowichan Housing staff spoke to the application generally speaking.
Would you take the podium, please? I think that's a handoff, isn't it, Mr. DeVertai?
Sounds like it to me. Good evening. Yes, so like Peter was saying, we are currently in the process of the Stream 1 of this program. So with the Stream 1 funding, we have performed a literature review of all pertinent documents relevant to this work from 2017 to current. And that was really to honor the work that has happened pre-COVID and during COVID, and really get a good sense of what priorities have been established through these reports for our community to address. And so the next step of this is to host a community engagement session on March 15th, which you've all been invited to present the findings of the literature review to the community, and then as a group reaffirm what, or if those priorities are still relevant or if they've changed, and really identify as a community what our priorities are, and then talk about a plan to be successful in achieving them. So the Stream 1 is really about creating a plan, and so that's what we're doing right now. And then for what we're talking about tonight, that was just a bit of background, but so for tonight we're talking about putting in an application for Stream 2, which is implementation, action is what they call it. And so that application is due on March 17th. So that only leaves us 2 days from the 15th, where the community engagement session is taking place, and then to get it submitted on the 17th to UBCM. So what you have in your package is a draft application where we've filled in as much as we possibly can with what we know so far. And then we're suggesting, and we will be suggesting as, partners to UBCM, that this is in essence what we want to do for our action for Stream 2, but we won't know for sure specifics of what the action items are going to be until we have this community engagement session. So we're proposing submitting what we can on the 17th, and then by April 3rd, submitting a second package to UBCM that really details out some of the questions that will be fleshed out more from the engagement session. And that will also include the literature review report in its finality. And we've also contracted a graphic recorder for the March 15th session. So his creation of our session will be available for submission to UBCM as well. Maybe the only other thing I'll say is through the literature review, some of the key themes that have really emerged is homelessness prevention and support, collaborative leadership, and of course I'm blanking, right? Even though this is like my world right now, communication and education. Those are three of the main themes that have been coming out of a lot of the reports that have been created. And so in the registration form, we've even asked the participants some questions around what their priorities are in those three main buckets to engage them further on the 15th around those three buckets. So I think that's all I can think of for right now, but yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from council? Okay, I have one. So you'd mentioned the April 3rd date. Is that, would that be to consider the upcoming provincial homeless count as part of that, or how's that, will that work into this or not?
We haven't been discussing the pit count as part of this initiative. The previous pit counts have been included in the literature review, but I suppose it could be if we had some data. I should know what the date of the pit count is, and it's funny. It's the 11th and 12th, yeah. So it certainly could inform the final application that goes to UBCM for Stream 2, absolutely, yeah.
Great.
And Cowichan Housing Association is leading the pit count as well, so,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. Any other questions? Okay, keep up the good work. Just one? Moved and seconder? All those in favor? That's passed. Thank you. That moves us to 9.1, Duncan Fire Department and Fire Services Bylaw number 3218. That council give first three readings to Duncan Fire Department and Fire Services Bylaw number 3218, 2023, a bylaw to regulate the fire department, fire prevention, and provide for the protection of life and property. And that council repeal the following policies: burning permits, contract fire protection areas outside of city, 1999. Fire protection outside city boundaries, 1977. Well, that's got to be a pretty old one. And those are the only two. Is there a mover and a seconder? Great. Any questions from council? Okay. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That brings us to item 10.1, the official community plan amendment bylaw number 3231, 2023. That council give third reading to the official community plan amendment bylaw number 3231, 2023. A bylaw to replace the development permit area guidelines in the current official community plan bylaw number 2030, 2007. And council adopt the official community plan amendment bylaw number 3231, 2023. Is there a mover and seconder? And did you want to go over those minutes from the earlier meeting, the earlier public meeting? Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor
McWilliams.
Duncan. Just for council's awareness, the meeting minutes from the earlier public hearing were attached, as you recall, to this agenda as a late item for your consideration. It is a requirement of the Local Government Act that any council member who wasn't able to attend the public hearing either receives a verbal or written report summarizing the public hearing. So my understanding is that the council members who are now in attendance had an opportunity to review those minutes, but I'm available if you'd like to ask any questions. You should be all good.
Is there something that you might want to bring up at this time, Councillor Bruce?
Thank you. Just with regards to the letter that was written by the group there that was referring to the preservation of, or looking at trees on other people's property, as it were, from the, if there's a development going in, and the idea of having that developer showing some responsibility to the trees on other people's property. And I know that's a very complicated issue, and I would just like to recommend that we as a council look at this at a later date and have fulfilling discussions on that particular subject as we go along. Is that possible?
Mr. Young, can we have a comment?
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor Bruce, absolutely. We're, staff have reviewed that submission from the member of the public and are planning to investigate that option further.
And seeing no further questions or suggestions, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 11.1, the proclamation under new business that council proclaim March 2023 as Multiple Melanoma Awareness Month in the city of Duncan. Is there a
May I
mover
just
and
double
seconder?
check? Sorry, so my apologies, sorry to interrupt. I have recorded here two separate readings, so third reading and then also adoption. May I ask for a vote on adoption of that bylaw?
Oh, sorry, okay. So all in favor of the adoption bylaw? Opposed, see none, carried. And I'll state with that one again for the new business that council proclaim March 2023 as Multiple Melanoma Awareness Month in the city of Duncan. Is there a mover and seconder? Great. Any discussion? No. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed. Reports of mayor and council. Any reports from councilors? Councillor Bruce, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Duncan. I just attended the Zoom meeting on the new DCC rates that was on my computer on Tuesday, February the 14th. And it was funny, the DCC rates kind of eluded me somewhat. Not that I'm not really good with numbers, but anyways, it eluded me until it was brought up to me that on the old DCC rates, if someone were putting in a house, in the city of Duncan, I guess a moderate house, the DCC rate for that house would be in the neighborhood of $5,000, $5,000 or $6,000. Is that right? Okay, and with the new proposed DCC rate, that rate for that same house would be in the neighborhood of $29,000. And I totally understand. I mean, we're having to fix our infrastructure, and those that are using the infrastructure must pay, and the DCCs is a one-time payment. So I'm not even making a judgment call on it. I see that it has to go up, and we were very, very low looking at all the different jurisdictions, and even some of the other jurisdictions that we compared ourselves to had their rates set back in '09 and so on. So we are comparable more or less to some of those now, but theirs are likely to go up as well. But my point is, I didn't really realize what a difference our numbers make to even just a single-family dwelling, never mind an apartment block. And of course, it's a delicate balancing act, it seems to me, between what you charge, you don't want to discourage anything, but at the same time, our infrastructure has to be paid for and improved. So anyways, I enjoyed that, Zoom meeting very much and learned a lot, so thank you.
Reports from any other councillors? Seeing none, question period. Any questions from the gallery regarding tonight's agenda? Seeing none, that will put us into 14.1, motion to proceed to a closed meeting. That the meeting be closed to the public under the following section of the Community Charter to discuss matters related to employee relations, Section 90, bracket 1, bracket C, labor relations or other employee relations. Is there a mover and seconder? All those in favor? We'll have a 5-minute recess.